All right, we're live.
Ink Day.
And now Ink Day. We've been
Ink
it's
Day.
crazy how controlled this thing is. I'm like the whole time I'm like try like telling people can't tell people all this stuff and then it's like finally, just a
I leaked
random
it early
Tuesday,
on
just a
accident.
random Tuesday. They're like, "Sure, announce it."
Yeah.
It's kind of a crazy thing. Like I did a post today on it just to update all of you on the podcast that might not know. This year, High Def hit Inc. 5,000 for the first time. We probably would have qualified in past years. To be 100% honest with you, I just didn't even know that it was a thing that you could like submit for. Um, and basically, like you qualify essentially by having a certain amount of growth year over year over a 3 year period. And so this year, we actually landed at number 858, which I'm curious. I should go back and do some calculations and see like how high we would have landed or like what was our percentage growth from like the past years, like if we would have submitted last year. I'd be curious to see that. Um, but
Yeah.
what was our percentage this year? How much did we grow?
493%.
493% over a 3 year period, which is
Over 3 years.
insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a 3 year growth trend. But apparently to qualify, I can't remember how much growth you need to qualify, but 878 out of 5,000, pretty solid. So happy to land. Did you see the
Well, what?
list? Did it actually go to 5,000?
I didn't go all the way out there, but they
It takes
said
you a
there was
long
five.
time to click through. Even to get into
I
858
know.
was a little bit of a trek, but
They
man, it.
said there's 5,000 on the list.
Oh, nice. I mean, I guess that definitely makes sense. Uh, yeah, and I can't remember because I was trying to look at like the original post I had taken a picture of, which I think I still have it here. Oh yeah, here it is.
Oh,
So
I,
we
I found
were
it.
we were
Yeah.
10th in Seattle, Tacoma, Bellevue area, 94th overall in healthcare medical, which is crazy to crack the top 100 in medical, and number
Yeah.
13 in Washington, which is awesome. Super pumped to to get to that.
I'd say the funniest part about that is I don't know about you, but like I feel like we've tamed ourselves down as far as growth goes. Like, I feel like we're like, hold on, let's slow it up. Like I feel like we haven't grown as fast as we could have.
For sure. I mean,
Overall, we turned so many people down. We've turned opportunities down, turned so many interviews down, like PTs.
yeah, it's
If we
it's
really wanted to hit the gas, we could be twice as big.
yeah, it's always tough because it's like it makes I think it makes you know it makes people uncomfortable sometimes within the organization when you're growing too fast because they think that things are going to get ruined. And I think it comes from a good place, usually where it's like people don't want to feel like you're going to grow so much that like the place that they love working is going to now become a place that they don't love working. And so I think
Yep.
as long as you could show people that you're not just going to grow and that you're going to grow in a way that's going to be, um, positive for everybody
For
because I
sure.
think a lot of people like it's always one of those conundrums I think in business and operating a business when you talk to people and they're like, oh yeah, I don't want all this growth, but then it's like when the growth doesn't happen, then they're like, well, now I'm leaving because the company's not growing. It's like it's
For
there's
sure.
the amount of times that we talk to people and there's this like double-edged sword of like Goldilocks where it's like, oh, don't grow too fast, but also if you don't grow at all, then then you're in trouble. But there's a lot of stuff like that. Like in almost every person we talk to, it's like, oh, I want this. Oh, it's too much of this. And then it's like it's hard to strike those balances, especially as you start to grow the organization larger and you get more people in that want different things. And so I think the biggest challenge for us, or for me at least over the last year, has been trying to like unite everyone into the same mission and direction. Cause, you know, there's 30 people or whatever inside the organization. Not all of them want the same thing out of the company. And so it's
Yeah.
sometimes hard to navigate all of that.
Yeah. No, I think it's also like growth is cool, but can you sustain that? And can you sustain your company as well? That's like the most impressive thing, right? Because like I said, like I mean, we could just bring them in, bring them in. Like let's keep growing, let's do all this. But I don't know if that would be sustainable. Probably not.
Yep.
I think we've found a great balance of like continuing to push while like understanding how to navigate what everyone else wants. I mean, obviously we don't get it right all the time, but I think we're at a good solid pace
Yeah. And
to
like
be
you
able to
said,
sustain.
like you said before we jumped on and hit record, it's like yesterday we just had two more physical therapists sign offer letters, and we've got one more starting in less than a month. So we've basically got three PTs starting in September. So, you know, sometimes we're like, hey, can we add three PTs in a year? We're about to add three PTs in within probably a 2 week period. So probably should have, I guess, like planned that out, thought that through a little bit better. But one of the things about business that you always hear from successful people is like saying yes and figuring it out later. So, you know, we'll be spread a little thin come the beginning of September, but we'll be coming off a good vacation golfing in New Mexico.
Yeah.
So we'll be ready for it. And that's one of the things, dude, is like it's 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 hard in the moment, but at the end of the day, like September will end and October will come and everything will be fine. And we'll be happy because we have three new great teammates. And
Yeah. You'll be happy you
so
did it. Yeah.
I think a lot of people just don't say yes because they like think about how hard it's going to be and how much work it is. And which makes sense, right? Like, I think if we knew what we know now, we wouldn't have started a lot of the projects that we had started
Yeah.
because it's just such a pain in the ass to like do some of this stuff like in the moment. But that's what I talked about in my post is like the difference between type 1 and type 2 fun. And really like type 1 fun is so fleeting. You know, it's like, you know, type 1 fun, if you don't know, is basically like are you familiar with this anyway? Like what
Yeah.
that different types of
It's
yeah.
like a sweet treat versus like going on doing a workout or whatever. Like the feeling you get at the end of the workout is better than
Yeah.
eating that sweet treat, but not in the moment.
Yeah, when I think of type 2 fun too, I think way more macro. So I think back like onto my college track career, all of the hard workouts that I did, it's like that was type 2 fun. It wasn't necessarily even like I got done with a workout and then the next day I was like, oh man, I had so much fun in that workout. It was like still because I was in the moment, it wasn't as fun. And the same thing I think in the first 2 years of opening this business, like driving 150 miles, eating 3 meals a day in the car, I wouldn't wake up the next day and be like, wow, I had so much fun yesterday. But now I can look back 3 years later or 4 or 5 years later and be like, oh, that actually was a fun time. I can't believe like I did that. But I think it like with type 2 fun, it takes a while for the pain to wear off and for you to be like not remember all the bad parts of it. Although, you know,
Yeah.
that takes a positive mindset, I think, to like remember like specifically remember the positive parts of something to make something type 2 fun. But I strongly suggest trying to figure out things that are going to be type 2 fun because type 2 fun things are going to be way more macro long term rewarding versus like I don't remember a specific moment where I had like a beer with a friend like looking, you know, it's like that's like the type 1 fun. You don't typically remember those things as well. They just I feel like for at least for me, I don't know if is this for you, they just don't like set as hard in my memory.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's just like the bonding aspect of it, you know, even like the cold plunge sauna thing. That's what we always talked about is like that as a hangout versus a beer is better because you're like, dude, we got over or we got through something, and like now we're gonna remember that. Remember, dude, you were like you didn't think you'd make it, and now you got through it. Like, that's kind of how I look at it. But just to start it off, we're already on this topic. I did a 5 reasons I think we made the Inc. 5000 in under 5 years, essentially.
Nice. Hit me
Because
with it.
I think, like, yes, we started technically in 2019, but like as a real like company and not just like a job for ourselves, I think that was like probably Bellevue, like 2021 almost, right?
Yep.
All right, so number one, simple sweat equity. We crammed 10 years into 5. Like, that's what happens. Everyone else stops at 40 hours and just like hopes for the best. We just did what needed to happen, and sometimes I was 80, sometimes I was 100. That's gonna be what it takes. And I think, the cool part about being on the list is like, oh, so that work did actually get recognized, and that was extraordinary, right? It wasn't like, oh, we just did all that and it didn't even work. Like, we put in a lot of effort, and the top 1,000 in the country effort. Two, one of our old taglines back in the day, savagely consistent. Like, dude, we just never stopped showing up. Every week, it was never like, I don't know, maybe we'll just stop trying. Maybe we'll just stop doing the little things. It was always like, no, all right, what's this week? What's our task we got to do? Keep adding, keep going. Which is the next one, relentless iterations. Like, we again never coasted. It's always like, all right, where are we at? What can we improve? Let's add another thing. What do we need to get better at? Again, what can we improve? What can we change? Always conversations about it, always looking at it, always just reviewing where we're at, how things are going. And then more bets faster. Number 4. Most companies are still in the meeting when we've already failed and figured out what's working and are already doing what we know works. Everyone else is just like so scared to make a move. Those are the people that we talk to. Well, do you think I should try this? Do you think I'm like, I don't know. Why don't you try them all and see what happens? Like, everyone's so scared of that. And we just never were scared of that. And I think that's why, because we have tried a lot of things that didn't work. But I think that's a big reason we've been able to get here. And then the last piece is right people, right mission. I think that we've been able to center around this mission that we're on and found people and continue to find people that care about that enough to like take pride in their work and take pride in the people that are in the company and what we're doing. Whereas without that, it would be hard to compete and hard to grow at the pace that we're growing at.
Yeah, man. I love all of those. And I think, like, obviously all of those resonate a ton. And I think if you can there's an extent to which, it's like maybe we weren't excellent at all 5 of those things at all times. But like, as long as you are like more often than not executing on those 5 things, I think like you can be successful in anything and in any industry. But the big thing is like, it's really not always going to be fun along the way. And that's where I think a lot of people like fall short, is like they want to create something that's so fun for themselves all the time. But nothing is like that, right? Like everyone, even like people go to their job, they expect to like enjoy every single day and every single interaction. And it's like, that's an interesting expectation, like, from like a realistic standpoint. Cause like nothing.
Or running the second it's not, right? Like, well, this must not be for me. Like,
yeah.
no.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, the biggest point that I take away there too is like just trying things. And it frustrated our team for a while where we would just like try random stuff, like, and then change course, or like wouldn't tell anybody that we were changing something. But at the same time, like we had people that we knew in business that would literally like be asking us weekly for the copy that we used for a specific message to send to a client. And it was like, hey, have you sent that message? They're like, no, I got to get the copy right. I'm like, dude, it's been 2 months. Send the message and figure out if it lands. And if it doesn't, tweak your message and do it again. But it's like people are so afraid to start, and like perfection really cannot exist. Like you have to build the parachute after you jump, it's like, or build the plane while you're flying. It's just like, it's impossible to do it otherwise. And I think like, obviously that's why it's shown. And I tried to think back and like looking at like, why did this work? And it was just because like we kept on just going out and finding opportunity after opportunity. And it wasn't like we were special. We weren't well connected. We didn't grow up, like with really good connections. We went
Money, yeah.
Like anything like that. And it was just like, we went out, made connections, found opportunities. And then the biggest thing was like, everyone gets opportunities, but it's like, do you say yes to them? And then how hard do you work to execute it? Because it's like, it's not rocket science. Like I didn't have a business degree. You have a business degree that doesn't really apply to physical therapy. Like supply chain management almost has zero to do with what we're doing. And if you even paid attention in college, that's
Exactly.
the question is like, did you actually retain anything during that time?
It's not coming into play.
Yeah. You're like, yeah, I think I remember a couple things from that 4 years, but it's like, yeah, it's crazy to think back. And I think there's no specific time where it's like, you just go, oh yeah, I figured it out. And now everything is good. It's like, you just figure it out day by day by day. You just find tasks and do them, find tasks and do them, find tasks and do it. And then over a time period that all stacks up, and then, you find some success, hopefully within that.
And I think, like you said, not giving up when things don't go well or right, because I think the big thing about the like right people, right mission, we didn't have that in the beginning. I don't think we thought we did. We definitely didn't have the right people, and we could have said, "Oh, I guess we're not meant to find the right people, and I guess we just can't do it." No, we just were like, okay, let's find the next one. Let's find the next one. And then eventually you find enough of the right people to where you can actually start to grow, and it's an actual organization that can build. But before you get that, it's really difficult. Like we've been there when it's like you got three people on the team, none of them really are liking it. None of them gel. One leaves. The others are just like, it's so tough. I think that's what's been the big unlock, is just getting a really good nucleus that we can grow from.
For sure. I think that influences the whole thing, is like when you have people that are well respected in leadership positions who are really like driving the culture on a day-to-day as well. And I think one of the better things we ever did was great directors for every location. That's been a huge key unlock in the last like couple of years for us. So, but at the end of the day, like Deadpool says, it takes maximum effort. And speaking of Deadpool,
I knew where you're going with that.
I've got a new topic. Have you watched Welcome to Wrexham yet?
No, I haven't. What's it on?
It's on Disney Plus, so you might have it, or like Hulu, probably on Hulu. But if you have ESPN with the other login, otherwise I'll give you my login. Don't tell Disney. You got to watch it. It's interesting. They tell a lot of stories, so it's not like all business. But Ryan Reynolds has been kind of a fascinating person to me in general, just because like, if you watch his early, like when you watch Van Wilder, you would have never expected that this guy was going to become like a billionaire business guy. And it's like watching him just go from thing to thing to thing. And he's such a good example of, if you just take your most extreme strength and then apply it to everything else, how it can work. Like you wouldn't expect a guy who is like a comedy star. And then, Deadpool, he really took off when Deadpool came about. There was a couple other movies before that, that made him popular. But dude, it's crazy. Like Aviation Gin, he buys in. It's kind of thought that he probably owned about 20% of the stake of this company. By the way, one of his brilliant things is that he knows that he has audience. He has a massive social media following. People love him. So he's like, I'm not going to start things from scratch. I'm going to use my celebrity to buy into something. He's one of the early guys to do this. And he's like, I'm going to use my celebrity to buy into something, maybe still put some cash up, but my equity is going to be my audience. And I'm sure he put money in, but I'm sure he got a discount on the price just because of his potential for growth. But dude, Aviation Gin, he builds it up. He does all these funny ads, and like they take advantage of like a bunch of like really fast stuff. Like I think he calls it like it's kind of like the concept of the fast follow, but he's like the fast response where it's like something blows up in the media. I can't remember what happened, but someone did an ad and it like blew up in the media, and then he immediately hired that person and did his ad with them because they got like a ton of backlash from whatever this ad was that they did. And he'll take it.
I slightly remember that.
He'll
Yeah.
take it and flip it immediately and like use it to his advantage. And it's really interesting because he sold that company. Aviation sold to one of the largest liquor companies in the world for $610 million, and he owned 20% of that. So that's a pretty nice little land. It's like $120 million cash out. Then he goes in and gets a share of Mint Mobile. And Mint Mobile is basically like a low cost, like silly, doesn't compete with Verizon and T-Mobile and AT&T. It has no bearing in that. But he rebrands it, makes it really cool, does all these funny advertisements where it's basically like, I watched this ad. You probably see a million Mint Mobile ads, but it's like, he's like reverse like bargaining where he's like, instead of $30, I'm going to make $20. Oh wait, I'm actually going to go down to $15 a month. So it's like the low cost version, but he's like doing all these funny ads in the Ryan Reynolds way of like, very funny stuff, but with a straight face. And he's like, does really well. Well, this company just goes crazy from all these ads, and people are joining Mint Mobile as the low cost option because there's really not a big winner in the low cost. There was like Boost Mobile was around and like some other
Cricket.
Yeah, Cricket Wireless. Terrible branding and name. And Mint Mobile comes around and sells to T-Mobile for $1.35 billion. And Ryan Reynolds owns 20 to 25% of Mint Mobile at the time of the sale. So that's another massive cash out, which is just insane because he's just stacking these wins. And then comes along.
Did he say what he buys in? Did he say what he buys in for at all, any of these, or you said he didn't buy much?
It's so hard to find. Yeah. I would say I would estimate that he at that time to buy into Mint Mobile, he did not have $200+ million and probably couldn't get a loan to buy into that. And so I think probably a lot was given in like equity of like value that he could increase by. But it's crazy because he just became the face of Mint Mobile. Like I never had heard of Mint Mobile before Ryan Reynolds. And it's like, that's the power of building an audience. And
that's the interesting part. That's the interesting part too, right? Is like you see people in these commercials assuming they just got paid to do the commercial, and most probably do. But now it's kind of like that. Well, why would I do that? I want a part of this actual company.
Yeah, so this was basically like where he was like, he basically goes, yeah, I don't want to just get paid to, and he's one of the first ones that's done this, and now a lot of creators are doing this because people are starting to realize the value they can bring to a brand. Like a Huberman, the value that he brings to a supplement company is so far beyond any money that you could pay for a single commercial. And so I think a lot of this is like, I want equity, I'll buy some, or I want options to buy some, maybe at a fixed price or whatever it is. But then I want just equity stake to now become the face of this and just put my full maximum effort behind this. And what's crazy is he's now getting paid on that deal on both ends, because after he sold Mint, he also signed a deal with he has a production company called Maximum Effort. And that is a production company that does all of these advertising and marketing campaigns. And so now he is being paid by Mint Mobile on the Maximum Effort side to continue to do like the production of ads and brand and all that stuff. So he's more like a VaynerMedia style business that's doing ads. I don't know if they do like all types of ads or if it's only like production, aka like video and like commercial stuff like that. But pretty interesting stuff. And then where that Welcome to Wrexham show comes in, it's just a brilliant play because like they, somehow they're like, obviously Rob McElhenney, who owns half of this as well, is super tied into FX because FX has carried Always Sunny in Philadelphia for like 20 plus seasons. And so, they got this show on FX, and then FX, I think, is somehow owned by Hulu or Disney. And anyway, it ends up on Disney Plus, and it's been going into several seasons. And so they buy this club, Wrexham, which if you don't know European League soccer, I had to like learn this as well as I started to learn soccer, but there's basically a bunch of divisions of soccer. There's like the top of the top, which is the English Premier League. And then there's like a Champions League or Championship League, sorry, is one below it. Then it's like Division 1, Division 2, and then under that is what's called the National League. And it's like technically not league play. So the National League is like, it's like 4 or 5 tiers down from the very top. And they buy this team that's, out of Wales, which is not England. It's like a different country. And they buy this team that had been up in the Championship League at one point, but had fallen all the way down. They had a huge support. They're one of the oldest sports teams in the world. And they play at this place called the Racecourse, which is the oldest international stadium in the world. So it's got a lot of history and it has a lot of fandom. And so they buy this team, and the whole town is like very suspicious of these guys coming in and buying this. But they bought it for about $2.5 million. And the thing is, like, obviously they buy it for $2.5 million. They've got to add some money in to like renovate the stadium. They've got to add some money in to renovate the facilities. And then they have to pay a lot more money to try and recruit high level players. So, all in, they invest in the first couple of years, probably around $10 million or 10 million pounds, I think is what the denomination is there. But since they've owned it, they've had 3 divisional promotions, so what a promotion is in old league soccer, basically, if you won your division or like the National League, you get promoted to the next division. And each time you win, you go up. And for certain divisions, like multiple teams, I think could go up. In the National League, it's actually the hardest division to get out of because there's a shitload of teams and only one gets to go up every year. So like you have to win this whole thing to go up. And like a lot of what you do is banking on that, because once you go from National League to Division 2, the league starts paying you $1 million a year just to help cover some of like the costs. But when you're in the lower league, National League, you almost get no money. So you're basically like financing this out of pocket. So if you have like a salary cap of like what they have, which is like $2 million a year, you're just losing $2 million a year unless you can make it back on merch and ticket sales. And they get good ticket sales for a National League team. They have like a stadium that fits like 9,500 people, and they fill it because of Rob and Ryan. But it's still like you're losing money. So you just there's a lot of pressure to go up, and they tell this really good story inside that show. But it's crazy because there's no other sports leagues in the world that'll let you do this, really. Because like think about like if my team that I play for with my brother-in-law Neil, if someday we won enough games that we could play against the Sounders and get to the MLS, that is literally how European soccer is. Like you could start from literally a beer league soccer team. And there are stories of teams in soccer, English soccer, that have started as essentially beer league soccer and have just gained players, won, and just moved up. And then obviously over time, you have to get more serious. You have to start operating like a real team and like build it. But it's crazy. Like you could work up to that. But no team will ever no league in the US will ever let you do that, because like we've talked about on previous episodes, to get a franchise for like the NFL, it costs you billions of dollars. And so like you can't like they would never let a team work themselves up to $1 billion valuation. Well, that's what you could do in English soccer league. So they've gotten 3 divisional promotions, which is a record. No one's ever gotten promoted that many times. And so they are back in the champion level, trying to get into the English Premier League. So if they could get into the English Premier League, they would have taken themselves from the National League and then all the way up. And then English Premier League is like Liverpool, Man City, Man United. Like these are multi-billion-dollar organizations. These are like LeBron bought into Liverpool. I think he owns a piece of Liverpool. That cost him a lot of money to buy into that team because it's worth billions of dollars. So they bought this thing for 2.5 million. Right now, they are selling a stake in the company. They don't say how big the stake is, but the valuation is $475 million that they're selling a stake for. And they're mainly only selling that stake to raise cash to be able to renovate the stadium, make it bigger so they can get more fans, because you need to be a certain size to host certain size matches. Just like the Super Bowl, you have to have a certain size stadium. And so they've got like a stands that's fully torn down. They need to rebuild it back up to make it bigger. But man, what a crazy come up, because if they do get promoted from the Championship League up to the English Premier League, it's going to be like a $1 billion valuation on this soccer club, which is also crazy the other way, because you could invest in a team and it could get demoted, relegated down a division, and it could lose a ton of value. And so this is just a wild, like, to me, this is just such a wild sports league that you could like potentially lose so much value.
Surprised more people aren't doing this, or maybe they are now.
Now they are. So Tom Brady just bought into a team, and they were a championship level team though. So they weren't as low. They weren't National League. Tom Brady didn't want to start from the bottom. He wanted to start from one league below the top. And so they came out. They're coming out with a show. I think it already came out. It's called Brady and the Blues, and it's about the soccer team that he bought. But again, I think this goes back to Ryan Reynolds, and I think a lot of this was actually Rob McElhenney. By the way, their LLC, greatest name ever, R.R. McReynolds Company. So it's like Ryan and Rob, but then they combine their last name to be McReynolds Company LLC, which is awesome. And they have funny ads. Like, they do the funniest ads together. They have a really funny dynamic. So the ads for Wrexham are hilarious. And now they have worldwide fans because of the show. So again, they've taken both of their media and they've funneled it into the soccer team. And they've got people who don't even like soccer, liking soccer, right, buying Wrexham t-shirt, jerseys and shirts, and like supporting the brand, and like going to, like, literally flying to games because they're like, oh, I've seen these players on the documentary. I got to go see them in person. And so, dude, it's just absolutely brilliant. And Ryan Reynolds owns about 40% of that team himself. So if that thing goes
to a media company doing the show too,
I think so. Yeah, he's a producer. Yeah. He's an executive producer of the show, and so is Rob McElhenney. So again, they're making money on all sides. So they're losing money when they're in the National League, but because they get so many fans, they sell so much merch, and they have the deal with Disney Plus to do this, I assume they're not really losing money. Plus, on the back of all the jackets for the team, Aviation Gin. So Aviation Gin is paying a big sponsorship, and I'm sure because it's on a documentary, it's going to be 100 times more than any national team. And so that's what a lot of these other teams in these leagues are crying about. They're like, unfair advantage. You guys, because of the documentary, you're getting like so much more media. And like, they're like, yeah, that's the game. Like, this is this is business. Like, you guys, like, this is the league. So anyway, that's why they're moving up so fast. They're getting players from Premier League teams that want to play for them, like coming out of retirement. They got this goalkeeper that came out of retirement. He was like probably a Hall of Fame level goalkeeper, I guess, Rob Foster. It's a cool story to watch. But whenever I watch stuff like this, I just like dissect the business side of all this. And it is absolutely brilliant. And you're getting to see it unfold as it goes. And so now I'm like obsessed with I'm looking up Welcome to Wrexham or Wrexham commercials, Mint Mobile commercials, the Aviation Gin commercials, because yeah, maybe you don't want to copy Ryan Reynolds' style in this, but at the same time, like there's so much to learn. He's an advertising genius. Like the things that he has
Yeah.
done, and it's not just off his looks. It's like he is legitimately funny, but like tactically, he's really good. And the cool thing about the show is you get the best behind the scenes look at like how he thinks. And like obviously he's not always funny and like how he presents himself in different situations. It's just a really fascinating like story to watch from behind the scenes.
Yeah. I think it's like starting with your leverage point and figuring out how to utilize that in other settings, right? Like like that's kind of what we've done with like our 2 hour cocktail party, right? Is like what's our leverage point? We have a business. Can we get other business owners? All right. Now other business owners are interested to come out. We haven't necessarily turned it into whatever this is, but you could see how like it starts. You know, like shoot, if we were in England, Bigfoot might be this, and then we would be going to join the ranks of those guys. But
Well, here's the cool thing. USL2 just implemented promotion and relegation systems. So theoretically, you could go from USL2 to USL1 to USL Championship. You can't go
oh
to
wow,
MLS. But the
yeah,
goal with the USL is they want USL Championship to be competitive with MLS teams. Like they want USL to get huge, and they're having USL Academy. So there are going to be 2 soccer leagues going on in the US, and I would imagine someday there'll be like a potential merger of those 2 brands because like people like MLS doesn't want a competing soccer organization taking away like players and view and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of like live
is
golf and
Ballard moving up?
well, here's the tough part. It actually gets more expensive to move up from USL2 to USL1 because USL2 is only like a 10 or 12 week season. USL1 is year-round soccer. So you are now paying salaries for players and so there's a big step up. So USL the league has got to figure out like how they're going to support people moving from USL2 to championship, but if it was like one team a year could get promoted, it would be Vermont Green because they won this year.
Oh, so is it the winner? You have to win it. It's not like a
I I don't know the specifics around the promotion relegation system for USL. I know it was announced. I don't know if it's actually even live yet. I think it might come into effect later down the line. But the big question is like, do these teams actually want to create a relegation? Because there are programs that own a USL2 and USL1 team, and they have their own, so they don't even need to get promoted. But it's interesting nonetheless. They're trying to bring in that like European style of soccer and whatnot. So yeah, pretty interesting. I mean, it's a fun thing to be part of regardless. And that's why I'm sure they wanted to do that Wrexham thing. But also I think when Ryan Reynolds went into it, it was very much more of like a business thing where he was like, oh, you could take a $2.5 million team and turn them into like a $1 billion team. You can do it.
right.
But I think now from just seeing the show, it's way more personal and he's like fallen in love with like the team and the soccer. And like it's hard not to when you're involved with it, where you're like, oh wait, this is actually like way more fun than running a gin company or a Mint Mobile. It's not just transactions on a spreadsheet and like whatever. It's like, no, this is like hardcore. It's like the fans and the people and like all that stuff. And I think that's why people get addicted to, sports. They like, we have such hardcore fans for sports around the world. I don't know what it is about it, but it like just strikes this thing. And I think that's why like the pinnacle for most billionaires is team ownership. And it's because like it's way more fun than like, especially owning a publicly traded company. Like we have a ton of fun owning a private company, but owning a public company must be brutal, man. Like, I mean, you're answering to shareholders every single quarter. Everyone's like just picking apart everything you do. It seems like going public kind of just takes the fun out of a lot of it. And the goal of going public is to make a ton of money, which is fine. Like I'm all for making money, but at the same time, I think it's it probably takes a lot of fun out of it.
And there's no like fun game, like that's the thing with the team. At least it's like, oh well, there's game day and maybe we go to the Super Bowl or whatever. But like, yeah, you get the media talking trash or whatever, but you could eventually win the Super Bowl with the going public. It's like
For sure. And I don't
just
know.
money,
Yeah,
really.
there's just a difference between it. But speaking of private and public, this is a pretty good segue. ATI this month or last month went private,
Yeah.
that's big news in physical therapy where we're at. So ATI had gone public, really struggled. They did so the original stock price, I think, what did we say? It was like a $10 share, and then they had to reverse
10 or 15, right?
I think it was 10, and then they reversed 50x split, which made the original stock price $500 a share, and then it went under $1, and they got delisted. The interesting thing about this story, though, is that apparently the two private equity companies already owned like 90% of ATI when it was public. So they had bought through maybe buying shares, but also like, I don't understand how public companies work, but apparently they might have gotten equity for financing debt or like giving debt for equity and like all these other things that like options to roll over debt into equity. Like there's a lot of things that are way above my head because I don't operate at this level, but they had already owned 90%. And so they only had to buy 10% of the company. And apparently, dude, this is where business is so weird. Like if you just tried to explain this to someone that didn't understand business, you'd be like, wait, you bought 10% of ATI for $1 million. So an estimated 441,000 shares were outstanding on top of the 90% that this company already owns. So there's 4.4 million issued shares. They already owned 4 million of them. They had to buy 441,000 of those shares. They offered a price of $2.85 per share, which this was under $1 and it was being delisted. So the current stockholders, the minority owners, were basically like, we have to sell because it's delisted. So there literally is almost no way to sell this without like finding someone that wants to buy my shares because it's no longer listed. So you can't just like open market sell. Like, so what do? Like go to your buddies and be like, hey, will you buy some of my shares? So they basically have to take this. So $2.85 times 441,000, that's like $1.26 million. So this company buys the rest of ATI for $1.26 million, which sounds like a crazy deal because you go, wow, over 1,000 clinics, this and that. But what you don't realize is they also have to they're basically committing to taking on the debt. And at the time that it went private, so ATI closed quarter 3, 2024 with 874 clinics. Their debt was like $376 million. So this private equity company basically said, we will become the shepherds of this debt. And by the way, during this like changeover, they had to take on another $26 million in what's called second lien PIK convertible notes, which is basically like debt that's added straight to it's not like added to the interest, it's added to the principal somehow. I don't understand all this stuff. But basically it closed them in on $400 million in debt. So that's what that company is dealing with. So right now they are privately trying to figure out, how do you take a physical therapy company that is losing money actively, restructure, cut all the clinics that are not profitable, which I'm very interested to see what happens in our area what clinics close, because they're just going to shut down essentially all the ones that are not making money. And again, like, I don't know what their leases look like. I'm very curious what happens if they just start shutting down clinics. Do they have to pay out their lease? I don't know. We would have to, but I don't know. There might be a world in which they don't. But yeah, kind of crazy. So now it's once again private, which shields them from having to operate under the investor's eye. Cause it's like at one point, it's like they already own 90%. You're like basically having to disclose your entire business and all your books just to the 10 to everybody because someone else owns 10%. So it makes so much sense to just buy that 10% so you no longer have to like open up your books and like explain why you're doing everything you're doing. And so now, unfortunately, we don't get to read all of the shareholder messages and watch
Yeah.
the reports, so we can't really tell what they're doing. But it'll be an interesting thing to keep an eye on. They're already doing some interesting stuff. Have you seen their like partnership with Tufts? So they're doing like this first of its kind partnership with Tufts PT because they're trying to solve the biggest issue I think ATI has right now is from the last thing I saw when they were public, they had about 30% were travelers, which travel PTs, you have to pay so much more money. They're not consistent. They're staying for 13 weeks. So patients are getting horrible continuity of care because they might have a knee replacement or ACL reconstruction and see 3 different physical therapists who are all short term. Probably not the highest quality. Sorry if you're out there listening to this and you're a travel PT, but if you're like going from clinic to clinic and have no like cohesion, probably not the best care you're going to receive. And so what they're doing is every semester, up to 45 ATI employees can get a scholarship to enroll at Tufts. So ATI is essentially paying for them. I don't know how much the scholarship is. But it's
like a admin to go to PT school?
yeah, it's so they're paying. Yeah, they're basically giving them a scholarship to go to PT school, and I assume it's in some sort of contract to come back and work at an ATI. But they're putting up to 45 people through per semester into these, and because Tufts is like kind of an online and hands-on thing, they have Boston, Phoenix, and Seattle. Obviously, we just opened our Tufts here. We have an employee going to Tufts. I don't know if they let them work a little bit during or whatever, but I'm sure the promise is like, hey, we're going to pay for your school. You come back and work for us. Now, we know how that goes, right? We know how well that works when you just lock people in and they feel like, we have always said like, we don't want to just have people work for us that don't want to. And so I'm really curious how this is going to work when they like, hey, we paid $100,000 for you to go there, but you have to work for us for 10 years to pay this off.
Yeah.
I'm very curious.
Define works though, right? Is like bodies in seats to them maybe working. Because
that's what I'm saying. I think everyone thinks, and especially from this corporate world, this is like classic like private equity, probably not fully understanding their workforce. And you go, PTs want to feel inspired every day when they come to work. They want to like come in and like feel like they're making a difference and not just like knocking out visits. And like, I feel like everyone we've met that signed like a 2-year contract for a sign-on bonus. Oh, I got $10,000. Nice. Feels great when you sign as a new grad. But then 1 year into that job where you're burnt out and you still have a year left and you're like, shit, I got to pay off $10,000 if I want to leave. You're locked in, and that's not a good feeling. That doesn't lead to really good happiness in your job role. And
dude,
what
we've seen people pay it back. Multiple people pay it back. I'm like, dang, I never thought that would happen. And it's like, that's how bad it is.
Yeah, you're so miserable that you're going to pay back $10,000 to leave. It's like, but that's like happiness and enthusiasm is underrated in like your ability to be a high level provider, right? Because like, if you're not enthusiastic about where you work, it's really hard to be good at what you do. But they have this, and then they also do a thing called the fast track option, which is like, they call it the Adept program. So they have 20 ATI staffers that can go through a 12-week online Adept program designed to prep them for success in the DPT path. So basically it's like they are even doing like pre-PT, like so for their techs and front desks can go through this like prep program to get them ready for PT school to go in and be successful so they get accepted.
I mean, it's smart, right? It's a smart play. I think that's what more companies should do is like, we need more people going through to come into the field. I don't know if it'll work for ATI. But like it's you could see as a business person, someone that just studies the game of business, you could see like if I went into plumbing, I'd probably set this same program up too, you know?
Yep. And then they top it all off with once you go in, then you come out and you go into a ATI residency. So or you can. So you can go sports or orthopedics, and then you become a resident. And so it's like it's an interesting model. Um,
You also potentially build the goodwill, right? Where it's like, man, they stuck with me from the jump. You know, at the start, they were helping me out. They helped me all the way through PT school. So you build a little bit of loyalty in that sense. Um, which,
Yep.
yeah, again, I don't know. We'll see how it plays out.
They have not disclosed how long of a requirement you have to sign, but I'm going to find someone who has signed this deal or at least been
Yeah,
offered this deal. I'm going to find somebody and I'm going to see what the terms of the deal are. Because like this is, it's a cool thing. I mean, we have a student pipeline. I don't know. I guess like you're indebted because they're paying for you, but I feel like if you
yeah,
have a really healthy student program anyway, it can be positive. Now, there are a million students that go through ATI. We have had so many people that we have hired that have, as students, done their rotation to ATI, but they don't want to go work for ATI because they've seen under the hood. And so that is the biggest uphill battle for them at this point is that they don't have a good reputation within the community of PTs. And even people who have worked there or have done a rotation there are not necessarily excited to go and work there. And so I'm very interested to see what they do with these locations that see 4 PT patients per hour, like in Nevada, and
yeah.
what they do with some of these other places. Uh, I don't know. It'll be a story to watch out for, and yeah, I mean, for us in private practice, it's just a bigger proof that, like, hey, you don't need to go private equity backed. You don't need to go public to make this successful. You just got to really run a lean operation and make sure you run an enjoyable business for your people to be in, and then go find those great people. And I think it all wraps itself back up to like Inc. 5000. Like that is the thesis of what we've done.
Have you ever heard of the PERMA model? Like the
No.
model of how someone can improve well-being. It was out of this book, The Psychology of Leadership. It reminded me of that, of like that's kind of what ATI is missing versus, again, not saying we're perfect, but things that we strive for. So PERMA model is positive emotion. That's the P. So like being around people that experience positive feelings and like are just positive overall. Engagement, so like being engaged in the activities you're doing. So you got to be around people with positive emotions. You got to be doing things that are engaging. The R is relationships, so strong and positive relationships around you. M is meaning, so being a part of something that you believe has a purpose, something larger than yourself. And then A, accomplishment, just like different achievements and goals that you're going after. And so it's like, you know, maybe ATI, you could get a good relationship in there. A lot of times you're not that engaged in what you're doing. With travelers, a lot of the times it's like not everyone has those positive emotions because they're just in and out, here to punch the clock. And you probably don't feel like you're a part of something great. So you're missing that meaning part. And so like those are all the things that like indirectly I think we've always tried to strive for. But after reading that, I'm like, always kind of analyzing that in my head about people on our team. Do they feel all of these things? And if not, how do we get them there? What can we do to provide that?
Yeah, dude. I mean, looking at that list, it's it's probably like as a traveler PT, you probably miss out on every single one of those. Because like the thing I always tell, like when I'm mentoring new grad PTs that are coming out of school, I'm like, the places that are hiring travelers and are willing to pay 30% more and only have you for 13 weeks are the people that are really, really desperate, and all they care about is patients being seen so that they can charge them. That's all they care about, because if they cared about more, they wouldn't go for the short-term fix. They would figure out the long-term issue and then solve that. But they're just filling short-term holes. And so you're going to get short-sighted managers who are not attached to like the quality of care they provide. You're going to get a workplace full of people who probably also don't want to be there and wish they could jump ship, and potentially are looking at options. You'd be surprised. You go into one of these companies or clinics, in our case, that are struggling. Like, a lot of people are looking for the exit door. They're looking for the emergency life raft that they can jump on and get out of there. And so like that's very a negative place to work. And like you said, like, you aren't going to build relationships with people in 13 weeks. You're not going to be heavily engaged. It's not very meaningful. And obviously you're not going to really accomplish a whole lot, from jumping around every 13 weeks. So it's interesting because like I know the pull, man. It's like PT, the degree is expensive and the salary wasn't high, but I'm like, dude, PT school cost has not gone up that much since I came out, and new grad pay is up like 35%. Like, we pay new grads 30% more than what I got paid. Like a lot. No, 50% more. And so it's like, I think it's better now, but still I think it's hard to turn down those jobs that are like, oh dude, you're going to make 30% more than you could at this outpatient clinic. But it's like, at what cost?
Well, I don't think that's ever explained, right? If you're new, you probably don't think of those things. Like, you're just thinking, cool, I get to travel and meet some new people. You don't, and I don't know, you tell me, like, did people explain that? Like, dude, if you're traveling, it's a shitty position that you're going to take.
No, and I think like the salespeople just have such a good way of selling this, like the traveler people. And to be honest, like, who knows? Maybe you find the meeting and engagements and positive emotion from the travel itself and trying different places. So you're like agnostic to the work, but you're like looking forward to like, oh, I get to go to Nashville, then I'm going to Phoenix, then I'm going to go try out New York, and then I'm going to go to Hawaii. It's like, your enjoyment and fulfillment may come from that. It's just not the person we're looking for, who is looking for enjoyment purely from something else. Because at the end of the day, man, it's like, I was thinking about this on the drive home when I was listening to a podcast and someone was talking about it, and it just like really made sense. Where it's like, we've got 100 years on this earth. It's so crazy that a large portion of us just go through life trying to gather a bunch of shit that we can't even take with us, to the point where like we burn all of those years just to get to the end and be like, I have all this stuff I've accumulated and I can't go anywhere with it. And it's like, same with work. I'm like, there's literally no reason to work in a place that you're miserable, because like the cliche is like, life is too short, but it's like, it really is too short. You work 40 hours of your week, plus like all the time you spend thinking about work. Like, I would so much rather, like, if I hated what I'm doing right now, I'd rather make 5 times less and just enjoy the shit out of what I do, versus like just, going to work every day and be like, oh fuck, and that's why I want to make the workplace.
We did this when we were making 10 times less, dude. It's like,
I know. And it's like, that's my biggest key, and what I try to remind myself every day when something is happening where it's like in the business where it's like not optimal, but it's not optimized for financial business outcome, but it is more optimal for enjoyment of employee outcome. Because at the end of the day, if we could create a business that people really truly love working in, It's just like the long term is so much better. And so I used to look at a lot of short term stuff in the business because we had to. We literally had loans to pay. We like our houses were like my house was leveraged against the business. It's like there are certain pressures that have to exist. But it's like once you can get past that point, we're lucky enough to get past that point where there's like we're not leveraged as heavily against pressure. That you get to start making better decisions for your employees. And so I do understand places that maybe you're like, wow, I can't believe you're doing this. That's so financially irresponsible. But it's like, okay, I could see where that intent comes is because you want to make it enjoyable for your employees. I think there's just a balance where you can't do too much because you have to make the business financially viable. And we've seen that a lot where people like basically make their business non-financially viable because they've just tried to optimize for happiness too much. So I think you got to build a really strong, robust system and then keep things lean so that you can optimize some areas for happiness and enjoyment within the workplace. And so I think, again, going back to ATI, that's going to be their most difficult challenge is that they're going to have $400 million in loans. So it's not like they're not answering to shareholders anymore, but they for sure are answering to debtors and the people that they owe money. And so, it's still a tough thing because now they've got to say, how do we make this a really enjoyable workplace, but also pay back $400 million?
Yeah, that we'll see how it plays out, man. We'll see how it plays out.
Yep. Meanwhile, we'll be chilling top 1,000 inside the EEC 5,000 list and building our ideal
Yep.
place to work. So I think that's the pod.
All right.